Hello learner, welcome to our today's lecture. The title of today's lecture is The Terrorist at My Table. It is a poem written by Imtiaz Dharkar. Imtiaz Dharkar is a British poet who had migrated from Pakistan. She was born in the year 1954 and afterwards when she was just an year old, her parents migrated to Glasgow and there she had achieved great success. She became a remarkable poet. Many of her works are a part of school curricula as well. She was appointed as the Chancellor of Newcastle University in January 2020. Imtiaz Dharkar has won a very renowned award, that is Queen's Gold Medal in 2014 for her English poetry. She is famous for creating questions in her works. She is known for questioning the people, questioning the society, questioning the culture, questioning the belief. And her poems are remarkably known for the use of vivid imagery and rich textures. Imtiaz Dharkar addresses the themes such as geographical and cultural displacement, conflict and gender politics. To name a few of her publications, we can have the poems like Parda, Postcards from God, I Speak for the Devil, The Terrorist at My Table, Leaving Fingerprints, Over the Moon, Luck is the Hook. There are some poems written by Imtiaz Dharkar that are a part of curriculum in different schools. We have poems like She Must Be from Another Country, Living Space, A Century Later, Speech Balloon and many others. These poems are taught in different schools there in Britain. Imtiaz Dharkar is also famous for her filmmaking career. She is not only a talented poet but also a prolific video filmmaker. She has written the script of different movies, different video films and over 100 audio visuals works she has produced that focus on different issues like reproductive health, education and housing for women and children. The center of her screen are women and children. She was awarded for a short film in 1980 and the award was Silver Lotus. It is a very famous award which is given for producing remarkable movies. Let us talk about Imtiaz Dharkar's poetic style. Imtiaz Dharkar is known for the use of vivid imagery in her poetry. Her creation of images in the poems is so lively that while reading those poems, we feel as if everything is happening in front of our eyes. One of Dharkar's well-known poems, Blessing. It vividly describes a Mumbai slum where a water pipe bursts. Using her distinctive style with lingering vowel sounds and full rhymes to bring the scene to life, Imtiaz Dharkar has created a very unique picture of that area. Here we have one example just to enjoy the use of imagery in Imtiaz Dharkar's poetry. The example is a stanza which is taken from her poem Parda. She writes, Parda is a kind of safety. The body finds a place to hide. The cloth fans out against the skin, much like the earth that falls on coffins after they put dead men in. In this example from Parda, she has created a philosophical twist that explores the nature of belief and the interplay between the religious and the secular. She creates a picture where she talks about Parda. Parda is like a sort of customary system. It is a part of belief in Muslim community where women observe this custom of parda. They wear a loose dress, a loose garment over all their dresses, over whatever they are wearing. They just cover themselves with this loose garment, which is considered as abaya, or which resembles very much a cloak. However, parda also means not coming in front of the males who are strangers to you. So, in this way, which is believed in one specific community to be a part of religious system, which is observed, which is practiced as a part of religion, and is considered to be a sort of a safety for the females, a kind of a safety covering for the women, because when they are covered, when they are following the practice of parda, other men would not be able to see them. This way they would be kept safe from the evil eyes of some men. So here Imtiaz Dharkar, she creates a kind of a twist here in this poem, where she talks about the belief which is a part of Muslim community, and then she also talks about how many of the women feel at the time of following this practice of parda. However, she creates a kind of interplay between religious and the secular. She says parda is a kind of safety. The body finds a place to hide. Cloth fans out against the skin, much like the earth that falls on coffins after they put dead men in. While parda, that is considered a sort of a safety by the society, at the same time there are situations when this parda becomes a kind of an obstacle in the progress of women. That is why Imtiaz Dharkar has compared it with a shroud and a coffin, because she wants to say that though it is a practice, though it is a custom in the society to follow this thing, to observe parda, which is considered by the society, by our patriarchal society, to be a form of safety for the females. However, in many situations this parda becomes a kind of obstacle in the progress of women. Here we have another example from one of Imtiaz Dharkar's poems, and in this poem we see that Imtiaz Dharkar has created a totally different picture. While in parda she talks about the religion, she talks about customs, she talks about traditions, practices, etc., and at the same time she talks about progress. She compares parda with a coffin and also considers it symbolically as an obstacle in the progress of women, and then she creates another picture, a totally different scene in a different poem. She talks about geographic and cultural displacement. She tackles with the themes of conflict and gender politics. Imtiaz Dharkar explores women's role in contemporary society and discusses the concept of home, concept of freedom and faith, and at the same time she challenges the conventional ideas of restlessness and search for identity. This concept of search for identity, this theme of restlessness, these two things are related with the concept of, with the phenomena of displacement, which is a part of the larger phenomena, that is migration. And most of the diasporic writers, as we know that, They deal with the themes of identity crisis, identity formation, and the theme of displacement and restlessness. Being a diasporic poet, Imtiaz Dharkar is no exception here. She also deals with the certain specific themes that are very particular of the diasporic literature. At the same time, Imtiaz Dharkar also presents the themes of belief and secular versus religious conflict, and we can get some examples of such themes in her poems like I Speak for the Devil. This is the title of one of her poems, where she has presented a conflict between religious beliefs as well as the secular ideas. Let us take the example which is a short stanza from the poem Speech Balloon. Here Imtiaz Dharkar writes, "You must have noticed, it's really quite clear. This condition has spread, it's happening there, it's happening here, it's full blown, grown, beyond every border to the farthest corner of every country where English is spoken or English is known." So, this is a theme which talks about globalization, which discusses the concepts of geographic as well as cultural displacement. And let us move forward. Here we have another example from the poem At the Lahore Karhai. As we know that Imtiaz Dharkar's themes are unique. Those themes are different from many other poets and writers. Her themes traverse the cultures of three countries, Pakistan, Britain and India. She weaves a tapestry of these three countries, these three cultures, and intertwines them into her poetry. Upon keen observation, it becomes evident that her poems form a pattern that captivates the readers, involving them and taking them on a journey through a familiar yet unfamiliar world. Here in this example, she has painted a lively picture of a roadside restaurant which is called dhaba in the Indian subcontinent. She writes, "On the Grand Trunk Road thundering across Punjab to Amritsar. This would be a dhaba where the truck drivers pull in, swearing and sweating, full of lust for real food, just like home." So she creates a very lively picture of a dhaba where hot, tempting, tasty food is being cooked, and these truck drivers who ply their vehicles on highways, they stop by this dhaba and wait for that sumptuous food, and they look for the taste which they used to get in their homes. So while traveling, here Imtiaz Dharkar creates a picture where she shows that when we travel, we leave behind the home, but there are certain things that make us think of the home every moment. The comfort of the house is one of those things, the safety of the house is one of those things, but when one is out for education, when one is out for job, or one is out for some other reasons, we miss the home mostly at the time of eating food. Whenever we eat somewhere else, we just look for that exact taste. We just look for that the specific food which we are habitual of eating. So it is something that she talks about here in these lines when she says, "Full of lust for real food, just like home." These truck drivers are looking for the good food, the food that would be similar to the food that they used to eat at their homes, so that they would not feel away from home, they would not feel displaced, they would not feel alone. This is the taste of the food which would maintain the connection with the home, which would make them feel at home. Her work challenges conventional ideas about home, freedom, and faith and reflects her heritage, culture, and values. She brings in the cultures of Pakistan, Scotland, and England into her writings. And these are the cultures that create different pictures, and sometimes these pictures are not exactly same. They speak of different things, they speak of different ideas, they speak of different views, they present different landscapes. Yet the presentation is very important, yet the presentation which is by one person, which is by the poet, which is by Imtiaz Dharkar, the presentation has one similarity everywhere, and that is the confidence, that is the challenging attitude of the poet. Despite the weighty subjects she addresses, Dharkar's poetry resonates with a global audience by addressing the experiences of those who have ever felt lost in our diverse and multicultural world. In the poem Halfway, she writes, "We navigate this fractured time, consulting ancient maps, overtaking on the autoroutes the unicorn, the poet king. Halfway home or halfway gone? We have grown accustomed now to traveling on the fault line of daily miracles." She questions whether this traveler is halfway home or halfway gone. This exact line talks about the situation of these migrants, these diasporic people, the immigrants in a new land. Are they halfway home or halfway gone? Because these immigrants who are away from their homeland, the immigrants who are trying hard to make a new home, to get settled in a new place, can we call them homed there, or should we call them homeless? So this is their situation, which gets reflected here also in this poem, where though Imtiaz Dharkar is creating a different scene, yet the situation resonates with the condition of many of the immigrants who are in search of their homes in a new land, and at the same time who feel displaced, who feel homeless because they are away from their home. In her early works like Parda and Postcards from God, Imtiaz Dharkar presents succinct descriptions of places. In Postcards from God, for instance, the deity is depicted as a blank slate, an entirely unique and new concept certainly. When she presents the deity as a blank slate, she says there is nothing but a space that someone has to fill. Similarly, in another poem, God is portrayed as a TV anchor, a TV channel hopper, navigating through our prayers and questioning. These poems, while carrying significant weight, are also accessible, modern, and occasionally light-hearted, adding to their engaging quality. In the poem Postcards from God, she writes, "Here in this strange place, in a disjointed time, I am nothing but a space that sometimes has to fill. Images invade me, picture postcards overlap my empty face, demanding to be stamped and sent." So she says, here in this strange place, in a disjointed time, I am nothing but a space that someone has to fill. Images invade me, picture postcards overlap my empty face, demanding to be stamped and sent. There are so many demands, so many questions, so many prayers from the people, and these demands are waiting to be sent and to reach the listener, that is the God. And there is this strange place where many people feel disjointed and they feel empty. They want to fill that space, they want to fill that gap, and thus they keep on sending different demands to the creator. Let us talk about different themes used by Imtiaz Dharkar in her poetry. Dharkar's poetry explores themes of alienness in a totally different way. Theme of alienness, which is very typical of most of the diasporic writers and poets, because we know that a person in diaspora is an alien in a new land. So this theme of alienness, which has been presented by each and every diasporic writer, so here Imtiaz Dharkar is no exception. She has also dealt with this theme, but she presents it in a totally new, totally unique way. Let's take an example where she writes, "When I speak on the phone and the vowel sounds are off, when the consonants are hard and they should be soft, they'll catch on at once, they'll pin it down, they'll explain it right away to their own satisfaction. They'll cluck their tongues and say, 'She must be from another country.'" So this is the position, this is the situation of an immigrant which Imtiaz Dharkar has painted in this poem. In these lines, she clearly shows the picture, the circumstances, the dilemma of an immigrant who is talking on phone, and this is the pronunciation of the language, the pronunciation of English, which is not the mother tongue of this immigrant. It may be a foreign language to this immigrant, or it may be a second language to this immigrant, but it is not the mother tongue. Therefore, the pronunciation is different. The pronunciation is not just like the native speakers of the language. Thus, when the person speaks, even on phone, these people understand that she is not from this country. So the theme of being other, the theme of alienness is presented here when this immigrant pronounces vowel sounds or stresses the pronunciation of consonants. So this stress on consonants differentiates way of speaking English, and therefore they come to know that the person must be from another country. This is how she has presented the theme of alienness, where she has used language as a medium of othering an immigrant. Another thing that is quite important when we talk about Imtiaz Dharkar's poetry is presentation of women and their role in the contemporary society. Imtiaz Dharkar, in her collection I Speak for Devil, which was published in 2001, she presents the role of women in the contemporary society, and she creates a kind of a comparison between the women in the Eastern context and the women in the Western context. She has taken up certain issues that are there in the Indian subcontinent. For example, she takes up the issue of honor killing, she takes up the issue of female feticide and many other issues. She talks about the gender discrimination in our society, and she also talks about the construction of identity in the Eastern context as well as Western context. And then she presents the role, the position of women in the society, where there are so many expectations, and this burden of expectations becomes a sort of a hurdle in their way of achieving a life of their own choice. She says that the identity of these females gets suppressed by the expectations of the patriarchal society. She has also presented various perspectives different ways of understanding different concepts and the interpretation of so many complex issues. Imtiaz Harkar's poetry is also known for the themes of introspection and daily life. The poem that is taken for today's discussion is The Terrorist at My Table, which presents a perspective about the atrocities happening around the world. And there is another poem which is also part of that same collection, The Terrorist at My Table. It is the title of a poem in that same book which got published with this title. There is this poem, The Right Word, where Imtiaz Dharkar presents a terrorist, and sometimes this terrorist is presented in the form of a freedom fighter, then as a guerrilla warrior, and as a martyr, and at other situation he is presented just like a boy. So there are these shifting roles and shifting identities that Imtiaz Harkar has created in her poem The Right Word. So these shifting identities give an example of the changes in the identity. So identity can change, and the personal relevance, personal perception, understanding can also change according to the roles performed by the people at different levels in a social system. That is all for today. We will talk about the poem The Terrorist at My Table in detail in some other lecture. Thank you.